The sword was not ceremonial. Commander Vex Torin of the Keth Dominion learned this the hard way when the blade, forged in the collapsed core of a neutron star and cooled in the blood of 17 species, sliced clean through his tactical barrier like it was nothing more than morning mist. He stumbled backward, his four eyes widening in what humans would recognize as pure, uncut terror. The woman holding the sword did not stop walking. Her name was Sarah Cole, 32 years old, former lieutenant commander of the Earth Defense Coalition's 7th Fleet. Former. That distinction mattered now. It mattered because the 7th Fleet no longer existed. It mattered because everyone she had ever loved had been aboard the flagship Meridian when Commander Vex Torin ordered its destruction. It mattered because Sarah Cole had spent the last 18 months crawling through the darkest corners of the galaxy, hunting this moment like a predator hunting its final meal. Stop, Vex commanded again, his voice carrying the harmonic resonance that made Keth's speech so unsettling to human ears. It sounded like 3 people screaming underwater. I am offering you terms of surrender. Sarah laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You know what I find funny? She kept walking, boots crunching against the obsidian floor of his command chamber. The Keth flagship Dominance hung in orbit above the human colony of New Tasmania, its weapons charged, its crew of 6,000 watching their commander face down a single human woman. You murdered 40,000 people, civilians, children, and now you want to talk about surrender. Vex's secondary arms reached for his sidearm, his primary arms raised in what might have been a gesture of peace or might have been preparation for combat. With Keth, it was hard to tell. The Meridian was a military vessel, he said, a legitimate target under the... It was a refugee ship. Sarah's voice cracked on the last word, just slightly, just enough to show that beneath all that armor, beneath the neutron-forged blade and the murder in her eyes, there was still a human being. A broken one. It was carrying 1,200 soldiers, she continued, and 38,000 civilians fleeing the bombardment of Mars Colony 7. My mother was on that ship. My sister, my niece, who was 4 years old and wanted to be an astronaut when she grew up. She stopped walking, 10 feet from the Keth commander now. Her name was Lily. She had this stuffed elephant she carried everywhere, named it Trumpet because she thought that's the sound elephants made. I promised her I'd take her to Earth someday. Show her a real elephant. Vex's grip tightened on his weapon. I am not responsible for her. You gave the order. 3 words. Flat. Final. The command chamber fell silent. Sarah could feel the eyes of every Keth officer watching through the surveillance feeds. Could feel the weight of history pressing down on this moment. A human woman, standing alone in the heart of enemy territory, armed with nothing but a sword and 18 months of rage. She should be dead. By every tactical calculation, by every law of probability, she should have died 100 times over, infiltrating Keth space, bypassing their security networks, fighting her way through 3 patrol ships and 24 soldiers just to reach this room. But humans, it turned out, were very difficult to kill when they had nothing left to lose. I'm going to give you a choice, Sarah said. Her voice was calm now, almost gentle, the same voice she'd used to read bedtime stories to Lily during their video calls. You can power down your weapons, release the colony below, and submit yourself to human justice for war crimes. Or, she smiled. It did not reach her eyes. Or I can show you what humans do when you take everything from us. Vex made his decision. His sidearm came up fast. Keth's reflexes were impressive. She'd give him that, and a bolt of superheated plasma screamed toward her chest. Sarah moved faster. The sword sang through the air, deflecting the bolt into the ceiling, and then she was on him. Close quarters, where his size advantage meant nothing and her training meant everything. She'd studied Keth anatomy for 6 months, knew exactly where their primary nerve clusters sat beneath that chitinous armor, knew which joints bent wrong under pressure, knew that their species had never developed hand-to-hand combat because they'd never needed to. They'd always won through superior numbers, superior firepower, superior cruelty. They'd never face a human who simply refused to stop. Sarah's blade found the gap between his chest plates, sliced through the secondary heart, and emerged from his back in a spray of copper-colored blood. Vex gasped, staggered, reached for her throat with one massive hand. She stepped aside and drove her knee into his primary lung. He fell. The commander of the Ket Dominion, conqueror of 17 worlds, architect of the Meridian Massacre, fell to his knees before a human woman half his size. How? He rasped. Blood bubbled at his mandibles. How did you get past our defenses? Our fleet? I had help. Sarah crouched down, met his 4 dying eyes with her 2 burning ones. See, that's the thing about humans, she said. We make friends. Weird friends. Inconvenient friends. The kind of friends who'd rather commit treason against their own species than watch another refugee ship burn. Vex's eyes went wide. Kura, Sarah nodded. Your own daughter, Commander. Turns out she inherited her mother's conscience instead of your cruelty. She's been feeding me intelligence for a year. Access codes. Patrol routes. The location of this lovely little flagship. She stood up. You killed her mother, too, by the way, on the Meridian. Did you know that? Kira's mother was human, a doctor who volunteered for refugee services. They met during the peace negotiations on Arcturus Station. Fell in love despite everything. Had a daughter who grew up between 2 worlds. Sarah looked down at the dying commander. And then you decided humans weren't worth the oxygen we breathe, and you burned every bridge she ever had. Vex's breathing was shallow now, ragged. The fleet will avenge. Your fleet is about to have bigger problems. She turned toward the massive viewport that dominated the command chamber. Through it, she could see New Tasmania hanging in the black, green and blue and beautiful, home to 3 million humans who'd fled Earth's overcrowding to build something new. And beyond it, at the edge of sensor range, a ripple in space. Then another, then 100 more. Vex officers started shouting. Alarms blared. The Dominance shuddered as its tactical systems registered what was emerging from faster-than-light transit. Ships. Human ships. Not the scattered remnants of the defense fleet, but something else entirely. Something old. Something that should not exist. The 7th Fleet. Impossible, Vex breathed. We destroyed. You destroyed our flagship, Sarah said. You killed our people, but you didn't destroy our ships. They were scattered across 3 systems, damaged, cut off from command. So we gathered them, repaired them, recruited every human pilot and gunner, an engineer who was willing to fight. She watched the fleet take formation. 67 vessels, bristling with weapons that had been modified, upgraded, and in some cases completely rebuilt. We've been very busy, Commander. The first salvo from the reformed 7th Fleet streaked across the void and struck the Dominance's forward shields. The deck pitched. Officers scrambled for their stations. And Sarah Cole, former Lieutenant Commander of the 7th Fleet, stood in the middle of the chaos like a statue. She had one more task to complete. Vex was still alive. Barely. His primary hearts had failed, but Keth had redundant systems. He'd survive another few minutes. Long enough. Sarah knelt beside him again, pulled a small holographic emitter from her belt. I want to show you something. She activated it. A child's face appeared. For years old, brown curls, gap-toothed smile, holding a stuffed elephant with a stitched trunk. This is Lily. Vex stared at the image. She was afraid of the dark. Sarah said, of thunderstorms, of the monster she was sure lived in the closet of her cabin on the Meridian. I told her that monsters weren't real. Her voice hardened. I was wrong. She stood, deactivated the emitter. Your ship is going to fall. Commander, your fleet is going to scatter. And your Dominion is going to learn what happens when you underestimate a species that turned grief into gunpowder. She began walking toward the exit. Behind her, the Dominance groaned as another salvo struck home. The lights flickered. The deck is listed. Vex raised one trembling hand. Wait. She didn't stop. I said, wait. She didn't slow. I can give you information. The invasion plans. The other commanders. Everything. Sarah paused at the door. Looked back over her shoulder. Her eyes were dry. Her voice was steady. The only thing I wanted from you, she said, You already gave me. And then she walked out of command chamber, leaving the dying alien behind her as the human fleet tore his empire apart around him. She had a daughter to find. A living one. Because Kira Torin, half human, half Keth, and the only reason this mission had been possible was waiting on the escape shuttle. And they had one more target to hit before this war was over. The shuttle was cramped, dark, and smelled faintly of engine coolant and terror. Kira Torin sat in the pilot seat, her clawed hands dancing across controls that had never been designed for someone with her particular anatomy. She was tall for a Keth, nearly 7 feet, but slim in a way that made her look almost human in low light. The genetic mixing had given her an angular face, copper-tinted skin, and 4 eyes that shifted between gold and brown depending on her mood. Right now, they were burning amber. She heard the airlock cycle behind her and spun in her seat, sidearm drawn. "Just me," Sarah said, stepping through the hatch. Her armor was scorched. Her sword was still in her hand. She was smiling. Kira exhaled. "Put the weapon down. You look terrible. You should see the other guy." Sarah dropped into the co-pilot seat and began strapping in. Outside the viewport, the Dominance was listing badly to port, its shields failing in cascading sections as the 7th Fleet pounded it into submission. "We need to go," Kira said. "My father's officers will realize I'm missing soon. Your father's officers are a little busy right now." On cue, the Dominance's aft section exploded. A plume of fire and debris spiraled into the void, carrying with it a significant portion of the ship's propulsion system. Kira flinched. It was subtle, just a twitch of her mandibles, a flicker in those strange hybrid eyes. But Sarah caught it. He was still your father. He was a monster. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. Kira was quiet for a moment. Her hands moved over controls, bringing the shuttle's engines online, plotting a course toward the rendezvous point. "He used to read to me," she said finally. "When I was small, he'd hold me in his primary arms and read these old Keth fables about honor and conquest. I thought he was the greatest warrior in the galaxy." Sarah watched her. "I thought a lot of stupid things when I was small. Don't we all?" The shuttle pulled away from the dying flagship, threading through the debris field with the kind of precision piloting that came from years of practice. Kira had learned to fly before she could walk. Keth children did, but she'd refined her skills in human space, running supply missions for her mother's refugee clinics. Her mother. Another thing Vex Torin had taken from her. Sarah reached across the console, put a hand on Kira's arm. "Hey, we're going to finish this." "I know. I mean it. One more target. Then it's done." Kira looked at her, for eyes meeting too. "And then what?" Sarah didn't answer. Couldn't answer. She'd spent 18 months focused on this mission, on this revenge, and she hadn't let herself think about what came after. What did you do when the rage that kept you alive finally burned itself out? What did you become when you no longer had anyone to kill? She'd figure it out later. Right now, they had a war to win. The rendezvous point was a hollowed-out asteroid in the debris field of what used to be Mars Colony 7. The Keth had bombarded the colony 18 months ago, the opening salvo of their invasion, and left behind nothing but rubble and ghosts. Sarah hated this place, but it was also the last spot the Keth would think to look for a human strike force. As the shuttle approached, her calm crackled to life. "Cole, this is Reeves. 7th Fleet Actual. Dominance is down, colony is secure, and we got about 2 hours before Keth reinforcements arrive from the Talon sector. Please tell me you've got something." Sarah smiled. Marcus Reeves, captain of the Resilience, flagship of the reformed 7th Fleet, 45 years old, gray at the temples, built like a cargo hauler and twice as stubborn. He'd been her XO on the Meridian, the only senior officer not aboard when Vex gave the order. He'd spent the last 18 months helping her rebuild what the Keth had destroyed, and now they were about to destroy something in return. "Got everything we need," Sarah said. Kira pulled the Dominion's master tactical database before we left. Every fleet position, every invasion timetable, every communication relay in Keth space. There was a pause. "You're joking." "I don't joke about revenge, Marcus." Another pause. Longer this time. "Cole, I have to ask." "Ask what?" "What are you planning to do with it?" Sarah looked at Kira. The younger woman nodded. I'm planning to end this war, Sarah said. Tonight, the briefing room on the Resilience was standing room only. Pilots, gunners, engineers, Marines, every officer who could be spared from their station had crowded in to hear what came next. They were a ragged bunch, exhausted, scarred, united by grief and held together by hope. Sarah stood at the front, the tactical display glowing behind her. 18 months ago, she said, the Keth Dominion declared war on humanity. They said we were too aggressive, too expansionist, too dangerous to be allowed to spread beyond our home system. She let that sit for a moment. They were right. Murmurs rippled through the room. Sarah held up a hand. We are aggressive. We do expand. And we are absolutely dangerous when someone threatens our families, our homes, and our future. The Keth thought they could bomb us into submission, break our spirits, make us so afraid that we'd accept whatever terms they offered. She looked around the room, met eyes that had seen too much death and still refused to look away. They miscalculated. She touched the display. A star map appeared, Keth space, with its 17 conquered worlds and its massive military infrastructure. This is the Keth Dominion. 140 billion citizens, 2,000 warships, an empire built on the bones of every species they deemed inferior. She touched it again. A single point appeared, blinking red at the heart of the map. This is Nexus Station, the central hub of their military command network. Every order, every communication, every tactical decision in Keth space flows through the station. It's the brain of their entire war machine. Marcus leaned forward. It's also the most heavily defended installation in the galaxy. It was. Sarah smiled. Thanks to Kira, we now have the access codes to their defense grid, the patrol schedules for every ship within 3 light years, and the personal command frequency of Admiral Zorth herself. Dead silence. Admiral Zorth, Supreme Commander of the Keth military, the architect of the invasion of human space, the one who had approved Vex Torin's request to destroy the Meridian, the one Sarah had really been hunting all along. We're going to walk into the most secure facility in the Dominion, Sarah said, and we're going to cut off the head of the snake. A pilot near the back spoke up. Young, nervous. And then what? Even if we take out the Admiral, the Keth will just replace her. They'll keep coming. No, Sarah said. They won't. She looked at Kira. Tell them. Kira stepped forward. 18 months ago, she'd been a frightened defector, torn between her father's legacy and her mother's memory. Now she stood straight, spoke clearly, looked like someone who'd found her purpose. The Keth are a hierarchical species, she said. Our entire society is built on chains of command. We don't adapt well to sudden changes in leadership. We don't improvise. She touched the display. Images appeared. Keth military vessels, their formations rigid and precise. Every tactic we use, every strategy we employ, is dictated from the top down. Individual commanders don't make decisions. They execute orders. And those orders all come from Nexus Station. She looked at Sarah. If you destroy the station, you don't just kill Admiral Zorth. You paralyze our entire military. It could take years to rebuild the command infrastructure. Years during which humanity can fortify, rearm, and make sure this never happens again. The room was quiet. Marcus spoke first. You're talking about a decapitation strike. One shot, winner takes all. I'm talking about ending this war, Sarah said, before it kills anyone else. She thought about Lily, about the stuffed elephant she'd never see again, about all the promises she'd never keep. We've lost enough, she said. Tonight we take something back. Nexus Station hung in the void like a cathedral of war. It was massive, nearly 5 kilometers across, and bristled with weapons platforms, shield generators, and the kind of defensive systems that made direct assault suicidal. Good thing they weren't doing a direct assault. The shuttle drifted through the debris field on minimal power, running dark, masked by Kira's stolen codes. Inside, Sarah checked her gear for the 5th time. Sword, sidearm, enough explosives to crack the station's reactor core. And one more thing, the holographic emitter. Lily's face, still saved in its memory. She didn't know why she brought it. Maybe because she needed a reminder of why she was doing this. Maybe because she needed Lily to be there at the end. Or maybe because she was about to walk into almost certain death, and she wanted the last thing she saw to be someone she loved. Approaching the docking bay, Kira said, "Codes accepted. We're in." The shuttle touched down. The airlock cycled, and Sarah Cole stepped onto Nexus Station. There were a dozen guards in the bay, Keth soldiers in full armor, weapons ready. They didn't see her. The personal cloaking device had been another gift from Kira, stolen from her father's personal armory. It bent light around Sarah's body, making her effectively invisible to the naked eye. She moved through the guards like a ghost, through the corridors, past the security checkpoints, deeper and deeper into the heart of the station, toward the command center, toward Admiral Zorth. The Admiral was smaller than Sarah expected. Keth tended toward bulk, heavy frames, thick limbs, natural armor, but Zorth was almost delicate, slim, precise. Her carapace was polished to a mirror shine and decorated with the campaign ribbons of a dozen conquered worlds. She stood at the center of the command center, her eyes fixed on a tactical display, directing the war against humanity with the calm efficiency of someone organizing a dinner party. Sarah stepped through the door, deactivated her cloak. The guard spun. Weapons came up. Shouts echoed off the walls. But Zorth raised one hand, and everything stopped. She turned, looked at Sarah with something that might have been curiosity or might have been amusement. "Lieutenant Commander Cole," she said. Her voice was smooth, cultured. "I was wondering when you'd arrive." Sarah didn't lower her sword. "You know who I am. I know everything about you. Your service record, your family, your rather impressive rampage through Dominion space over the past 18 months. Zorth smiled. It was unsettling. "I also know you planted explosives throughout my station, that you're planning to destroy the reactor core and take me with it, and that you've almost certainly brought that little holographic emitter with the image of your niece." Sarah's grip tightened on the blade. "You've been watching me. I've been admiring you." Zorth stepped closer. The guards tensed, but she waved them off. "Do you know why I approve the destruction of the Meridian? Because you're a monster. Because humanity terrified me." Sarah blinked. Zortha's 4 eyes were steady. "Serious. Your species is barely 1,000 years old. You've had faster-than-light travel for less than a century. And yet in that time, you've spread across 24 star systems, terraformed worlds that should have been uninhabitable, and built a military that can stand against empires 10 times her age." She shook her head. "You don't follow rules. You don't respect hierarchy. You take ridiculous risks and somehow survive them. You adapt and improvise and refuse to stay down, no matter how many times you're beaten." She looked at Sarah. "You're the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and I thought if I struck hard enough, fast enough, I could break you before you reached your full potential." Her mandibles clicked. "I was wrong." Sarah stared at her. "Is this supposed to make me feel better?" "It's supposed to make you understand. I'm not a monster. I'm a strategist. I saw a threat, and I tried to eliminate it. I failed." She spread her arms. "So finish it." Sarah looked at her, at the guards, at the command center that controlled the entire Keth war machine. She thought about Lily, about her mother, about all the people who died on the Meridian. And then she did something she hadn't planned. She lowered her sword. "No." Zortha's eyes narrowed. "No, you want to die a martyr. You want your people to rally around your memory and keep fighting. You want this war to go on forever." Sarah shook her head. "I'm not going to give you that." She reached into her belt, pulled out a small device, pressed a button. Every screen in the command center flickered, changed, began displaying something new. The Meridian's final transmission, the recordings from the escape pods, the testimonies of the survivors, children crying for their parents. Parents are screaming for their children. Doctors and nurses were trying to save the wounded while the ship burned around them. And at the end, a single image, a stuffed elephant, floating in the debris field, trunk stitched, button eyes staring at nothing. "This is what you did," Sarah said. "This is what your strategy costs. And now your entire empire is going to see it." Zortha's face changed. The composure cracked. Something raw and terrible surfaced in those four alien eyes. You can't. I already did. Sarah smiled. It was not a kind smile. Kira broadcast this to every communication relay in Keth space 5 minutes ago. Every world, every colony, every ship in your dominion is watching right now. They're seeing what their glorious military did to 40,000 civilians. She stepped closer to the Admiral. You were right about one thing. Humanity is dangerous, but not because we fight harder or take more risks. She leaned in. It's because we make people care. We tell stories. We show them the truth and let them decide for themselves what kind of universe they want to live in. She gestured to the screens. Your own people are going to demand answers. They're going to ask why their children are dying in a war started by atrocities they never approve of. And they're going to remember that you're the one who gave the orders. Zorth stared at her. This isn't justice. No, this is a consequence. Sarah turned to leave. At the door, she paused. Oh, an admiral? The explosives were a bluff. I wasn't going to destroy your station. She looked back. I was going to let you live with what you've done. And then she walked out. The shuttle was waiting. Kira at the controls. Sarah strapped in. Close her eyes. It's over, Kira said. Yeah, how do you feel? Sarah thought about it. About the rage that had driven her for 18 months. About the grief that had hollowed her out. About the revenge she'd planned and the justice she delivered instead. I feel tired. Kira nodded. Me too. The shuttle lifted off. Pulled away from Nexus Station. Headed toward the fleet. Toward home. Toward whatever came next. And behind them, in the command center of the most powerful military installation in the Dominion, Admiral Zorth watched the testimonies play on every screen. Watched her empire begin crack. Watched and understood that she had not been defeated by weapons or tactics or superior firepower. She had been defeated by a stuffed elephant named Trumpet, by a 4-year-old girl who wanted to see the stars, by a species that turned grief into something stronger than hate. Sarah Cole leaned back in her seat and let the exhaustion wash over her. Through the viewport, she could see the human fleet holding position, waiting for her return, waiting for orders. She didn't have any. Not yet, but she had something else. A future. And somewhere out there, in whatever came after death, she liked to think Lily was watching, proud of her aunt, ready to show her the elephants at last.